So our second speaker is Jimmy Farrell. Jimmy is the EU AI policy lead for Demain, a think tank working at the interface between technology and policy across both national, regional, and international fora. Farrell's currently working on policy recommendations for the EU to ensure the responsible development and deployment of AI systems. Previously, Jimmy worked on the EU's AI Act, which is basically one of the only pieces of legislation in a major country has on AI. It's a very exciting and important work as part of the European Parliament's Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee Secretariat. Jimmy has experience in public affairs consultancy within the EU, working with a wide range of digital and fintech policy areas. So Jimmy, the floor is yours. Please do take the stage.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very happy to be here. Thank you, of course, to Stuart Russell and all the organizers of this conference. I've had a good time, and I hope I can contribute to that for you guys as well. So yeah. Serious incident reporting and lessons from safety critical sectors. I think it's quite clear that serious incidents will happen in AI, and you need rules to report on them. This is something that happens in other safety critical sectors, and it needs to be done in a standardized way so that authorities can remain informed. So that's the presentation today. The context of this is that serious incident reporting is mandatory in the AI Act. So yes, the EU just passed this law in 2023, and the details of this law, the kind of quasi-standards before standards come in, called the Code of Practice, basically how this serious incident reporting should be detailed. So this is something that's being drafted right now, including by some people in this room. So yeah, that's the context for the speech today. I didn't realize there was going to be an introduction, so this has all been said. I have not a technical background, so please, any technical questions to Neil. I have an economics and EU policy background, done some consulting for Google and other fintech clients. Also in the OECD expert group of AI incidents, and that's something I'll talk about today. The OECD is doing really important work on the concept of AI incidents. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to talk about a brief overview of some AI incidents. This is kind of important for the conversation, I think, because it grounds it in reality a bit. We spend so much time talking about the risks of AI, and I think very little talking about what has actually already happened, and some things have already happened. So I'll start with that. Then we'll get to the reporting timelines and the final incident report template. Actually, I think I've switched the order around. It's going to be root cause analysis. No, never mind, the order's right. Reporting timelines, final incident report. I'm going to talk about root cause analysis, a key feature of serious incident reporting. Also unrealized harm, where I have more questions than answers. So I would also encourage people to think about this issue when I get to it, and feedback loops at the end. So incidents that have already happened. I'm going to start by talking about the AI incident database, which is this really cool grassroots tool online. It's a platform that has started cataloging AI incidents. The OECD has a similar one called the AI Incidents Monitor. And it's much more broad, though. It includes all kinds of incidents, including hazards that haven't realized in harm. And so I'm going to talk about the AI incident database because it's a bit closer to the AI Act definition of what a serious incident is. So since February 2025, there's been 902 incidents. Sorry, as of February 2025, there's been 902 incidents. And I'm going to talk about 5 examples that all happened within 1 year from October 2023 to 2024. Now, keep in mind that these incidents will get more serious as the autonomy of these models increase, the capabilities increase, and more importantly, the breadth of deployment increases. So this is going to be a little bit of a taste of what's to come. So here's 5 cases. We had deepfake recordings allegedly influenced the Slovakian election. We know that election interference in Europe is happening more and more, including by really capable state actors. The second alleged deepfake CFO scam reportedly costs multinational engineering firm 25 million. So you might have heard of this case. That under the AI Act would be a serious incident with serious financial consequences. The more sinister one, character AI, a chatbot influencing a teen to commit suicide amid claims of missing guardrails. This also happened recently. Number 4, an AI transcription tool, Whisper, reportedly inserting fabricated content in medical transcripts. I'll get back to this later on because this is an example of an unrealized harm. So keep that in mind. And the fifth one, alleged AI-powered call center breach exposes 10 million conversations in the Middle East. This is a serious data privacy violation and an infringement of fundamental rights, which fits into the AI Act definition. So that's where we're at. So yeah, let's get on to how you report on it. Serious incident reporting timelines are really important because this basically means that authorities can be kept in the loop and informed and in a timely manner so that they can react to it properly. So because I'm a policy person, I'm going to talk about policy. In EU law, there's kind of three ways to do this. You have the most simple, which is just a single report with a time limit. You have a tiered incident severity report, so different time limits for different severities. And then third, you have the timelines being tiered themselves, so different things to report at different times. So roughly the first two categories on the left, so timeline on reporting in yellow, GDPR, if there's a data breach, 72 hours for a notification. And then in the bottom left, the green, it's where there's severity tiers. So with medical devices, depending on how serious it is, you have to report at different times. Same with AI Act, same with narrow AI, high-risk systems elsewhere in the AI Act. On the right is recent EU cybersecurity law. And this is where the tiered timelines comes in, because this is where there are serious informational asymmetries where most of the reporting on this is happening inside the company. It's not something that's happening super publicly. So this is where it's really important too. For example, give an early warning within 24 hours. So no more information than just something's happened. Within 72 hours, a official notification. Okay, what happened? How severe was it? And so on. And after 1 month, a final report. That's the Network and Information Systems Directive, which is a EU cybersecurity law. This is kind of three options. And for AI, it seems clear that the third option is the best because it's a similar situation with informational asymmetries and one in which authorities need to be informed as early as possible. So this is the reporting framework, timeline framework that we've proposed. It includes an initial notification to affected entities straight away. So if you know who it's affected, they need to know. Early warning, this is important because we know that AI incidents can be for a multitude of different reasons. They can be malicious, they can be accidental, and in some cases they can be a loss of control, which is neither of those first two options. So this gives an early warning as to whether you're dealing with, something just went wrong, oops, or is it a malicious state actor who's, printed a bioweapon and is spreading across the world or something like that. Also intermediate reporting, and finally the serious incident, the final serious incident report after 15 days. So I think you might know where I'm going with this after Neil's presentation. The most important thing in serious incident reporting is the causality. Because why do we report on serious incidents? So that we can learn from them, so that we can know what caused them, so that we can do different things next time, so that we can update the rules to be like, okay, this risk mitigation didn't work, this did, this corrective measure did work, this didn't. So causality is really important. And what have we learned is really difficult with AI models. It's causality. It's something that is very, very hard to establish because of these issues that mechanistic interpretability is trying to solve. And this is something that needs to be addressed within the serious incident report. So we've conceived this two-stage causality analysis with general purpose AI models. The mechanistic the interpretability issues within the model is only one part of it. So stage one is the causality between the serious incident and the model output or action, because these models will be integrated in ever more complex systems. We've heard this morning that from Max Tegmark that AGI is more likely to be some crazy scaffold of different agents with different LLMs, with different AI systems. And a GPAI model under the AI Act might be connected to an AI system that might be connected to a non-AI system, critical infrastructure, something like that, where this stage one is hard to disentangle. So that's one stage. The second stage is what Neil is talking about. So this is within the model. This is the causality between the GPAI model input or some characteristic with it and what it output or some action that it took. And these two stages are really important to separate out. On the second stage, a concept that appears a lot in the AI Act and also in the Code of Practice is this idea of state of the art. So evaluations need to be state of the art, or certain risk mitigations need to be state of the art. Cybersecurity protections need to be state of the art. The same is the case for this causality analysis of serious incident reporting. You need such deeper than black box access, some of which Neil spoke about, like we have sparse autoencoders at the bottom. Again, ask Neil what this is, not me. Ablation studies, sparse autoencoders, steering vectors, the more traditional statistical methods of causal mediation analysis. These are all options of some close to state-of-the-art, or some are probably better than others, but this kind of thing needs to be reported in the serious incident report of what model providers did to see what happened. So that's causality. The final report template. This is kind of important to know that it's to have this standardized is really important. As an authority, you don't want to be, constantly have a different type of report when it comes in. You want it to be exactly the same. This is important because it makes sure that the inclusion of report components is not left to the discretion of providers. Of course, sometimes they won't always have the information, but it clearly states what needs to be there. Authorities can react quickly, consistently, and decisively. Reporting gaps are quickly identified. This is really important. So if it's not in a standardized way, you can't immediately see what's missing. And providers can also share best practices if they do it the same way. This is a very common thing in standards. So it should be for serious incident reporting as well. So we've proposed a reporting template on the left. The OECD also has one. There's a lot of overlap, very similar. I've taken a lot of inspiration from the OECD. Theirs is a bit different because their definitions are different, so they're including things like hazards, unrealized harms. But some key elements that are not included in the current Code of Practice draft that would be really important to be included is stuff like serious incident intentionality. So what would come across in an early warning? So whether it was malicious or unlawful use, whether it was malfunction, whether it was misalignment. These three scenarios will have completely different reactions from the model providers, from authorities, from anyone who is responsible for dealing with. You're going to react completely different if it's a Russian AI-powered cyber attack, or if it's a model self-exfiltrating itself, or if it's just a critical infrastructure disruption that nobody knows how to fix, right? Detailed information about the model, so how autonomous it was. This is something that OECD mentions. The breadth of deployment. We know it's not just the capabilities of a model that is important, it's how much it's been deployed in society. This is something in the AI Act that also could be a criteria for systemic risk. Detailed information about the harm, so whether it was ongoing, cross-border effects. This is from cybersecurity legislation, NIS2. And corrective actions, not just of the provider. So of course, the provider won't always know what corrective actions others have taken, but we know that the AI value chain is very complex. So there are other parts of it. So what the system provider or the downstream deployer did in response, what the compute provider did, that will be very important. And of course, any other relevant actors. So individuals, organizations, or other government actors, because if something happens with Anthropic's model in Vietnam, it might be the case that the Vietnamese government has done something on the scene that needs to be included in this report, and Anthropic might know about that. So what about unrealized harm? So this is something that, again, I have more questions than answers to. I would really encourage people to discuss this. But this is something that's not in the AI Act. So a serious incident is only about realized harms. But what about unrealized harms? You have things like near misses, which is a common thing in safety critical sectors. And you also have this idea of hazards. So first I'm going to talk about near misses. So this is a brief overview of some near miss reporting frameworks in certain industries: aviation, maritime shipping, railway, nuclear, and chemical processing. Highlighted in green is where it's mandatory. And for the more astute of you, it's mandatory because in these three, there's literally two things that actually almost miss, right? Like a plane, a ship, or a train. And it's mandatory because, people will notice other than the airline if there was a near miss. Classic example here, about 7 years ago, an Air Canada flight was about to land on a runway where 4 planes were parked. It was supposed to land on the runway just next to it, but it was literally about to. It came within about 10 meters of, like 30 feet, it was an American report, of the front plane, and then the pilot was like, oh, that's probably a bad idea, and nose went up, and it was a near miss. And this was mandatory to be reported on because people, well, I don't know this for a fact, but maybe people saw from the airport, they were like, that's probably not supposed to happen. So in other industries where it happens more behind closed doors, at a nuclear plant, if there's a near miss, we're not going to find out about it. It's not mandatory. And AI is much more likely to be in this case. So I would suggest that near misses should be highly encouraged, but not mandatory. And that's something I'll come back to because someone else has done a lot of research on this. So then a more difficult concept is this idea of AI hazards. And this is something, as I said, that the OECD has worked on and defines, so this is in their framework for AI incidents. They define as an event, circumstance, or series of events where the development, use, or malfunction of one or more AI systems could plausibly lead to an AI incident. So, yes, so going back to the fourth example of an incident, an AI transcription tool, Whisper, reportedly inserting fabricated content in medical transcripts. This has not led to a real-world harm, but clearly it's sitting there waiting to happen, right? So is this something we report on? Is this something we make mandatory? Is this something we encourage? It's tough. And then an even more tough example, this example in the bottom right corner, it's a bit too small maybe to read, but a lot of you may recognize it as Apollo's testing of the O1 model and evidence that it has internal thoughts about self-exfiltration. So basically, it was given a really strong goal, and then it was, basically threatened to be turned off or threatened to compromise that goal, and it thought, okay, can I copy myself onto another computer to still achieve that first goal? Now, what do you call this? It feels like an incident, right? Or this is just evidence, but if a self-exfiltration actually happened, it feels like an incident, right? If an AI model, autonomously escaped from its computer, it feels like an incident, but under the AI Act, it's not. So maybe it's a hazard. This is really an open question that I would invite people to weigh in on. And then the evidence of this being possible, is that also a hazard? Because this is like the example of fabricating content in medical transcripts, in that it's just kind of sitting there waiting to happen. So that's a hazard. So going back to near-miss reporting, Chris Shishak from the Irish Council of Civil Liberties, he's done some work on this, and he suggests that it should be voluntary but strongly encouraged and incentivized, publicly confidential so that it's incentivized, immune from repercussions, and have a low bureaucratic barrier, so some very easy reporting mechanism. Now, hazard reporting, as I said, I have more questions about this than answers, but maybe something to do would be to divide it into risk tiers. Anyone who's familiar with the EU, they love risk tiers. So this is something we could do here as well. Maybe mandatory reporting for serious hazards, and have hazards and serious hazards as we have incidents and serious incidents, and have some sort of threshold for that. And then, again, where does the example of self-exfiltration fit in? Feels like an incident. Under the AI Act, not an incident. So quickly, feedback loops. Serious incidents are crucial data points for emerging GPAI risks. So as I said, we sit around here and talk a lot about risks that could happen, and that's very important to do. But when they actually do happen, it's really important that has a feedback loop into basically improving the rules on how we report. So, for example, in the code of practice, there should be serious incidents should explicitly trigger reviews of the code of practice, for example, on what kind of evaluations you have to run, what kind of cybersecurity measures you have to put in, and other risk mitigation measures. So lastly, I want to mention a few other topics that I didn't have time to go into today, but are also really important in the field of serious incident reporting. Is under the AI Act, an infringement of fundamental rights is a serious incident. And this is really important to operationalize in thresholds. But of course, with fundamental rights, it's difficult. This could be quantitative or qualitative, but it's important that it's an infringement. So it's not only leading to harm. So for example, if you have a AI facial recognition system that illegally scrapes the faces of 5 million people in a city and hasn't yet done anything with that data, like doesn't have a dystopian social scoring system or whatever, it hasn't led to real world harm, but it is still a serious incident because it is the infringement of a fundamental right, not just the harm that is captured by the AI Act. So that's important. Facilitation of third-party serious incident reporting. So yeah, this could be facilitated with the inclusion of whistleblower protections for GPAI provider employees, so that it's not only the provider doing the reporting, but potentially the employees could do, or citizens. This is something that the Code of Practice does try to address, so that's great. And then for the actual regulator, the authority, in this case the AI office, to have a secure reporting environment and appropriate incentives to ensure model providers are maximally protected, because they need to be incentivized to do this as well. You won't always find out if you don't have such incentives like protections from legal redress, protections from IP theft, and protections from reputational or financial damage. So that's all I had to say today. We wrote a paper on this in August. A lot's changed since then, but I still recommend you to check it out. And yeah, that's serious incident reporting. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy. We do have a few minutes for questions from the audience. So, yes, over there. Please do remember to press the button in front of you.
Yes. Well, thank you for a very clear presentation. Just have a point on the issue of the reporting, because there are some repositories. I refer to the AI incident reporting repository, that also contain the stakeholders that are impacted by that specific incident. This I didn't see in your presentation. I just was wondering whether that can help, because it could help, in fact, the specification of tiers, because stakeholders impacted mean how many in different categories were impacted. So I just wanted to hear your opinion on this.
Yes, so would this be in regard to whether the report should include which affected entities, or whether the affected entities should include which affected entities? Yeah, this is something we have in our template. I didn't put it on the slide, but this is something that is very important to include. Yeah, so different AI incidents will affect different entities and in different ways. One important aspect is the initial notification to the entities before authorities. So, if, for example, with the unrealized harm of the medical transcripts, like as soon as you find out, you'd want to know whose medical transcripts were wrongly written. But this should be included. So the template is really long; it can't fit on one slide. So check out the template we've made. Yeah. I can repeat the question. Oh yeah, come right here.
My question was, why would the near miss be, I mean, maybe that's already answered for the nuclear case, but why not have it be mandatory? Is it just that it's hard to enforce if you can't physically see the planes miss? But like, it seems like you might still want that to be mandatory, especially if there's other protections.
Yes, so the question is why not make near miss reporting mandatory? The reason is because it's really about incentivizing the provider to report on it. If you create a culture where everything is mandatory, near miss requires a bit of goodwill from the provider and the authorities to have a good relationship and say, this was a near miss, we want to inform you about it so that we can think of ways to work around it. But with transport, it's actually impossible because you see the things almost missing. So I agree that like near misses should be reported on in every sector, but realistically, yeah, to create an environment in which you incentivize providers to report on near misses, yeah, it's very difficult to make that mandatory because it's completely behind closed doors. So you would need some sort of internal surveillance of what's going on in there or something.
In order to enforce it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I actually will use my moderator privilege once to dig into that a little bit more, because with things like sort of corruption in government contracts, the US federal government has this interesting system where if you report an incident to the US government, you get, as an employee, you get a cut in the damages. So if the federal government pursues that company, then you get something like 30% of it. So there have been people who've become, multi-millionaires from basically blowing the whistle. Now, I'm sure plenty of corruption flies under the radar nonetheless. But I could imagine there being some innovative mechanisms to provide incentives. So maybe you could say a little bit more on whether that's worth pursuing, whether there's serious limitations to this, if it's going to sort of create this uneven landscape where some things come to light, others don't.
For sure, yeah. So I think this is more relevant to the conversation of whistleblower protections, which is an element of the code of practice. It's extremely important, and of course there have been many high-profile whistleblower cases coming out of especially OpenAI. So yeah, that could be a way for authorities to find out about near misses. But of course, a lot of the things that the whistleblowers are blowing the whistle about is not just near misses. So it also includes hazards. It includes illegal practices. Like one of the whistleblowers was on OpenAI's copyright practices. So absolutely, there should be a link between whistleblower protections and near misses. And the EU tries to do this where all whistleblower law is basically relevant to AI, and that's easier said than done, but that's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Thanks. I think we have time for at least one more question.
Sure. All right, thanks. Yeah, just brief question about the definition on like a potential risk of the focus on hazard. I'm not sure whether you can go back to the slides, but I had the impression that the OECD definition would basically apply to the development of any frontier system happening right now. Because one of the reasons why serious incident reporting is a good idea or is necessary is that there's this recognized risk based on everything we know about frontier air models that especially future ones might cause more serious incidents. And so I'm curious how you would operationalize the focus on hazards, and especially how you would narrow down the could plausibly lead to, I think, which was part of the definition, could plausibly lead to a serious incident. Like how do you define could plausibly, and what sort? You mentioned the one Apollo finding, I believe, on scheming. What other evidence would you need for that to apply?
Yeah, so as I said, this is definitely something I have more questions than answers on. I think this point that you raise is exactly why the EU didn't include it in the AI Act, because it's a much more difficult concept to address. But the medical transcripts example is like a very tangible one where something happened and like something happened in the real world, right? Because those medical transcripts exist, and that's like a latent risk that could show after. So I think this is something that, for example, the code of practice is supposed to be updated quite regularly. So this is something that I would certainly be thinking about how to operationalize for further reviews of the code. But in the context of the self-exfiltration example, yeah, it seems possible that there are, in the same way that that serious incident definition in the AI Act has about 5 points of like harm to or death or harm to a person, critical infrastructure, interruption, financial damage, environmental damage. It seems like you could maybe have a option list like that for hazards that is would include stuff like the manifestation of control risks that haven't led to real world harm, like self-exfiltration. So that's one option, but I'm kind of thinking out loud here. So if you have ideas, I'd be really curious, because as I said, the code of practice will be done in April, but AI moves fast, and so too must the code of practice. So this is something we'll be working on more.
Okay, I think it's all we have time for from Jimmy. So will he be around in the break perhaps
Yes,
for more
absolutely.
questions? Okay, great. So looks like all of our speakers will be available in the break so far for any additional follow-ups. So yeah, let's thank Jimmy again for that excellent talk.